Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Easy English Podcast. I'm Hana, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Alex. Today, we have a very special episode because we are going to look at two little words that cause a lot of big confusion for English learners. We're talking about may and might.
Hey, Hana. Yes, may and might are famous for making people stop and think, wait, which one should I use here? The good news is, by the end of this episode, you won't have to guess anymore. We are going to make it super simple with real-life examples. How are you doing today, Hana?
I'm doing great, thanks. Actually, I was thinking about this topic yesterday. I wanted to go for a run, and I looked outside. The sky was very gray. I thought to myself, it may rain. But then I also thought it might rain. And I realized I don't really know if there is a real difference there. Do they mean the exact same thing in that sentence?
That is the perfect place to start. In everyday spoken English, most native speakers use them almost interchangeably in that situation. If you say, it may rain or it might rain, everyone will understand the exact same thing. There is a chance of water falling from the sky. But if we want to be really good speakers, there is a small key difference in how likely something is to happen.
So it's about the chance or the probability. Tell me more about that. Which one means a bigger chance?
Think of it like this. May has a slightly higher chance of happening. It is more likely. Might is for things that have a smaller chance, things that are a bit more doubtful or distant. So, if you see huge black clouds right above your head, you should say, it may rain. The chance is high.
Okay, that makes sense. So if the clouds are big and dark, it's very possible it may rain. But what if the sky is just a little gray? Or maybe there are just a few clouds, but the sun is still out?
Exactly. In that case, the chance is much lower. So you would say, it might rain later. But I'm not sure. It's a smaller possibility. Let me give you another example. Imagine you are planning a weekend trip. If you have already looked at train tickets and you really want to go, you could say, I may visit my grandmother this weekend. There is a good active chance.
But if I am just thinking about it as a faraway idea, like, maybe I will stay home and sleep, or maybe I will travel, I haven't decided at all, then I should say, I might visit my grandmother?
Spot on, Hana. That is exactly it. Might is your go-to word for maybe, but probably not. Or it's just a weak possibility. Let's practice that. Listeners, think about your plans for tonight. If you are almost certain you will watch a movie, you can say, I may watch a movie tonight. If you are tired and will probably just sleep, but there is a tiny chance of a movie, say, I might watch a movie tonight.
That is such a clear way to see it. High chance is may, lower chance is might. But Alex, I often hear learners make a classic mistake. They think might is just the past tense of may. Is that true? Can we use them for time, like past and present?
You hit the nail on the head, Hana. That is indeed a very common assumption, and technically, historically, might was the past tense of may. In some grammar situations like reported speech, we still do this. For example, if yesterday you said, I may go, today I would say, Hana said she might go. But in normal, everyday conversation, we don't really use might as just a past tense word. We use both of them to talk about the present or the future.
Oh, that is a huge relief for learners. So we don't need to worry about might being only for yesterday. We can use both for today and tomorrow. But wait, what about asking for permission? This is another area where I get confused. When I was in school, my teacher always said, may I go to the bathroom? She never said, might I go to the bathroom? Why is that?
Your teacher was absolutely right. When we ask for permission, we almost always use may. It is very polite and formal. May I come in? Or may I use your pen? Are beautiful, polite sentences. If you use might to ask for permission, like, might I use your phone? It sounds extremely old-fashioned, almost like you are in a historical movie from 200 years ago.
I can picture myself wearing a giant historical dress, asking, "Might I have a cup of tea, sir?" That does sound very funny and way too formal for modern life.
Exactly. Nobody talks like that today unless they are joking. So, rule number one for permission, always use may if you want to be polite. May I ask a question? Yes, you may. We never say, yes, you might, to give permission. It just sounds wrong.
Okay, that makes complete sense. So, for permission, may is the absolute winner. May I is polite, and yes, you may is how we give that permission. But what about the negative forms? This is where I sometimes stumble. If I want to say no, or if I want to talk about a negative possibility, how do may not and might not work?
This is a brilliant question, Hana, because the negative forms actually have a very interesting difference in meaning, and it can be a bit of a trap for learners. Let's start with may not. When we use may not, it can mean two different things, depending on the context. It can mean that something is not allowed, or it can mean that there's a possibility that something won't happen. For example, if a sign in a museum says, you may not take photos, it means it is forbidden. It is a strict rule. You do not have permission.
Ah, so may not can mean you are not allowed to. It is like a polite version of must not or cannot. Is that right?
Exactly. You may not park here means you are not allowed to park here. But may not also talks about possibility. If I say, it may not rain tomorrow, I am saying there is a chance it won't rain. Do you see how those two meanings are completely different? One is about rules and the other is about guessing the future.
Wow, yes, that could be quite confusing if someone misunderstands. If my boss says, you may not work tomorrow, does she mean I am banned from the office? Or is she just guessing that there won't be any work for me to do?
Precisely. In spoken English, we usually understand from the tone of voice and the situation, but it can be ambiguous. Now let's look at might not. Might not only has one main meaning, a low possibility that something will happen. If I say, I might not go to the party tonight, it just means I am not sure if I will go. There's a chance I will stay home. It never means I am not allowed to go.
Oh, that is actually much simpler. So might not is always about possibility, never about rules or permission. If I want to avoid any confusion about rules, I can just use might not when I'm talking about my plans. For example, I might not cook dinner tonight. I might just order pizza. Nobody will think I am forbidden from cooking.
Exactly, Hana. That is a perfect, natural example. I might not cook means there is a chance you won't. It's safe, clear, and very common in daily life. And here's a little pronunciation tip for our listeners. We often shorten might not to mightn't in British English. But in American English, people almost always say might not as two full words. Mightn't is quite rare in the US.
That is good to know. I think mightn't is quite difficult to pronounce anyway. Might not feels much friendlier on the tongue. What about may not? Do people ever shorten that to mayn't?
Almost never. Mayn't is extremely rare even in British English. I don't think I have heard anyone say mayn't in real life for decades. It sounds like something from an old book. So stick to may not as two words always.
Got it. So we have may not and might not. Now let's do a little practice game to help our listeners really lock this in. I will give you a situation, Alex, and you tell me which word fits best and why. Let's start with this one. I am looking at the sky. It is gray, but not super dark. I want to tell my friend that there is a small, weak chance of rain later. What should I say?
Since you described the chance as small and weak, might is your best friend here. You should say, it might rain later. It tells your friend, hey, keep an umbrella nearby just in case, but don't worry too much because it's not a guarantee.
Perfect. Now, what if I am looking at the weather forecast on my phone and the app says there is a 70% chance of rain in an hour? The clouds are already looking very heavy and dark.
With a 70% chance and dark clouds, the probability is much higher. In this case, may is excellent. It may rain in an hour. It sounds more certain than might.
Great. Let's try another one. I am at a friend's house and I am feeling very hot. I want to ask if I can open the window. I want to be polite, but not too formal. What do I say?
Well, for asking permission politely, may I open the window is wonderful. It is respectful and correct. However, in casual daily life with close friends, many native speakers also use, can I open the window? Or, could I open the window? But if you want to use our target words, may is the only choice. You definitely shouldn't say, might I open the window, unless you want your friend to laugh and call you Your Majesty.
Yes. Might I open the window sounds like I am visiting a palace. I will stick to may I if I want to be polite, or just can I for my close friends.
Exactly. Can is very common for friends. May is perfect for polite situations. And might is for the history books when it comes to permission.
That makes so much sense. So might for permission is basically dead in modern English unless we are in a movie about the 19th century. But what about negative sentences? This is where I always get confused. If I say, I may not go to the party versus I might not go to the party, is there a big difference?
Ooh, this is a fantastic question, Hana. And it is actually a very common trap for English learners. Let's look at may not first. If you say, I may not go to the party, it can actually mean two completely different things depending on the context. It could mean, it is possible that I will not go, or it could mean, I do not have permission to go, like a rule.
Oh, wow. I see. If my boss says, you may not use your phone during the meeting, she is definitely not talking about possibility. She is giving me a strict rule. She is saying you are not allowed to.
Spot on. You may not is a formal way of saying you must not or you are not allowed to. So if you say, I may not go to the party, and your friend hears you, they might think your parents or your boss forbid you from going. But if you say, I might not go to the party, there is absolutely no confusion.
Right, because might is only about possibility. So I might not go can only mean there is a chance that I will stay home. It never means permission.
Exactly. Might not is much safer and much more common in daily conversation when you want to express a negative possibility. For example, I might not finish this book tonight, or we might not have enough milk for breakfast. It just means maybe not.
This is a great tip. I will definitely start using might not for all my negative doubts. It sounds much more natural and avoids any weird misunderstandings about rules or permission. Let me try an example. I might not visit my sister this weekend because she is very busy. Is that correct?
Perfect. Beautifully said. It shows a real, everyday possibility that something won't happen. Now, let's talk about the past. This is another area where learners get a bit worried. How do we talk about possibilities in the past using these words?
The past tense. I usually hear people say things like may have or might have. For example, I might have lost my keys. Is there a difference there?
In modern casual English, may have and might have are used almost interchangeably for past possibilities. For example, if you can't find your phone, you could say, I may have left it in the car, or I might have left it in the car. Both mean it is possible that I left it in the car. However, might have is much more common in spoken English.
Okay, so for past possibilities, might have is the crowd favorite. But is there any situation where only one of them is correct? I feel like there is a catch.
You have a great instinct, Hana. Yes, there is one very important situation where you can only use might have, and may have is actually incorrect. This is when we are talking about something that could have happened in the past, but we know for a fact that it did not happen. We call this a counterfactual situation.
Counterfactual, so against the facts, like a situation that is imaginary because the reality was different.
Precisely. Let me give you a clear example. Imagine you're driving a car and you suddenly swerve to avoid a bicycle. You miss the bicycle safely. After you stop, you breathe a sigh of relief and say, "That was close. I might have hit him."
Ah, because I did not actually hit him. The fact is, he is safe. But the possibility of hitting him was there. So I say, I might have hit him.
Yes, in this case, you cannot say, "I may have hit him." If you say, "I may have hit him," it sounds like you don't know whether you hit him or not. Like you drove home, closed your eyes, and now you are wondering, did I hit someone? Which sounds crazy.
Yes, that would be terrible. I may have hit him sounds like a mystery you haven't solved yet. But I might have hit him means I am glad I didn't, but it was a very close call.
Exactly. Let's do another one to make it super clear. Imagine you decided not to take a flight, and then you hear on the news that the plane had a major engine problem and had to make an emergency landing. What do you say to your friend?
I would say, wow, I am so glad I didn't take that flight. I might have been on that plane.
Spot on. Again, you cannot say, "I may have been on that plane," because you already know you were safely at home. It is an imaginary past possibility, so might have is your only choice here.
This is such a helpful distinction, Alex. To summarize, if we're talking about a past event and we don't know the truth yet, like where we left our keys, both may have and might have are fine. But if we know the truth and we are just imagining what could have happened, we must use might have.
You summarized that perfectly, Hana. You should be the teacher today. Let's give our listeners a quick practice. I will say a scenario, and you tell me which one sounds best, okay?
I am ready. Bring it on.
Scenario 1. You are looking for your coworker, Sarah. She isn't at her desk. You think perhaps she went to get a cup of coffee, but you aren't sure. What do you say to another colleague?
Since we don't know the truth yet, and it is a real possibility, I can use either. I could say, she may have gone to get coffee, or she might have gone to get coffee. Both work, but might have is very natural.
Perfect. Now, scenario 2. You walked home in the pouring rain yesterday without an umbrella. Today, you wake up feeling completely healthy. You look at your dry clothes and say to your roommate, "I was so lucky. I got completely soaked and I caught a cold, but I feel great today."
Ah, in this case, I know the truth. I did not catch a cold. I am healthy. So this is an imaginary past possibility. I must say, I might have caught a cold.
Brilliant. You nailed it. "I might have caught a cold" is correct because you didn't actually get sick. If you said, "I may have caught a cold," your roommate would probably try to give you some medicine because they would think you are currently sick.
Oh, wow, that is such a huge difference. If I say I may have caught a cold, my roommate thinks I'm sick right now. But if I say I might have caught a cold, they know I'm just talking about what could have happened yesterday, but didn't. It's like a sliding door in a movie.
Exactly. It's all about reality versus imagination. If it's still possible in reality, may and might are both fine. If it's purely imaginary, because we already know the real result, use might. Let's try another one. Imagine you are planning an outdoor picnic for this weekend. The weather forecast says there is a small chance of rain, but they aren't sure. What do you say?
The picnic is in the future. We don't know the truth yet because the weekend hasn't happened, so it's a real possibility. I can say it may rain this weekend, so we should bring umbrellas.
Or I can say it might rain this weekend. Both are totally correct, right?
Spot on. In everyday spoken English, most people will use might here just because it sounds a bit softer, like it might rain. But may is 100% correct too. Now let's change the scenario. The weekend is over. It was beautiful and sunny the whole time. You had a wonderful picnic. Now you are back at work on Monday talking to a friend. You want to say that the weather forecast was wrong and you are glad it didn't rain. How would you say that using our grammar?
Okay, the picnic is over. I know for a fact that it did not rain. So this is an imaginary past situation. I should say, we had a great picnic. It might have rained, but luckily the weather was beautiful.
Perfect. It might have rained is exactly right. If you said it may have rained, your friend would look at you very confused and say, wait, you were there. Don't you know if it rains or not?
Haha, yes! That would make me sound like I fell asleep during my own picnic and have no idea what happened. This is making so much sense now. But Alex, what about when we want to ask for permission? Like when I was in school, my teacher always wanted us to say, may I go to the bathroom, instead of, can I go to the bathroom?
Ah, the classic classroom question. Yes, may is the traditional formal word for asking permission. May I use your phone? Or may I ask a question? It sounds very polite and formal. In modern casual English, many people just say, can I or could I? But may is still widely used in polite situations.
Can we use might to ask for permission too? Like, might I borrow your pen?
You actually can, but it sounds extremely old-fashioned and formal. If you say, might I borrow your pen to a friend today, they might think you are acting in a historical drama. It's much better to stick to may I or just can I for permission.
Got it. So may is for polite permission, but might is way too formal for that. Let's do a quick recap for our listeners because we covered a lot of ground today. What are the main things they should keep in mind?
Let's break it down into 3 simple rules. Rule number 1. For general possibilities in the present or future, you can use either may or might. They mean almost the same thing. For example, I may go to the gym tonight, or I might go to the gym tonight. Both are great, but might is more common in casual conversations.
Rule number 2, for past possibilities where we still don't know the truth, both are also fine. For example, I lost my keys. I may have dropped them in the supermarket, or I might have dropped them in the supermarket. We still don't know where they are, so both work.
And rule number 3, which is the most important one. For imaginary past situations where we do know the truth, you must use might. For example, I didn't study for the exam, but I passed. I might have failed, but I got lucky. You didn't fail, so only might works here.
That is a beautiful and simple way to remember it. Honestly, before we started talking today, I thought may and might were just completely interchangeable, and it was just a matter of luck which one to choose. Now I feel so much more confident using them.
I am so glad to hear that, Hannah. And to all our listeners out there, don't worry if you don't get a perfect every single time. Real-life English speakers will still understand you, but practicing these small differences will make your English sound incredibly natural and advanced. Try creating your own sentences today using may and might to practice.
Yes, practice makes perfect. Thank you so much for explaining this so clearly, Alex. I think our listeners are going to find this super helpful for their daily conversations.
It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the Easy English Podcast. Keep practicing, keep smiling, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now, everyone.